County Building Authority, where we have to take some action on the Regional Railroad Authority, and then we will move to our formal board meeting. We also have to have a closed session because we've had an offer to purchase some property. So those of you who are here for the public hearing, we probably are not going to get to the actual public hearing till about 6 o'clock. You are most welcome to stay and listen to the formal parts of our meeting and to be here while we take a break to do our closed session on the offer we've had. But just so you know, we probably won't get to that public hearing till 6. So, but we're glad you're here, and we will certainly be happy to talk with you. I have asked staff to put on the chair a couple copies of our general land use plan, which is the subject of the public hearing, because I think there's some confusion about our approach to general land use planning. And I think some people will be surprised to see how detailed it is and difference between general land use planning and zoning. So when we get to that public hearing time, we've got an hour to kill anyway. So you may want to look over that plan. So with that, I am going to call our meeting to order, and we're going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business is our Olmsted County Building Authority. I've called that meeting to order, and we only have two things to do on this agenda. The first is to the election of officers. And do I have a motion? Mr. Canan, if you're going to help us with this.
I'm only here, Madam Chair, just in case there are questions, but just to reiterate, this is a bit of a strange animal again. The Olmsted County Building Authority was created in the late 1980s. It was created at a time when local units of government were allowed to create private corporations. The law has since changed, and so basically this is a grandfathered corporation, but we keep it alive just in the event it has a use. For over 30 years, it didn't really have a use, and then last year, as it turned out, we waited long enough, and the HRA had a use for the building authority, and so the building authority is now the owner of 19 scattered single-family homes that the HRA had formerly owned, and that allowed them to access a program and funding that they weren't able to access before. So as you can see on your agenda, as it is every year, we just simply need you to elect officers. It's typically the same officers that the county board has, and the board of directors for the building authority is the same as the county board. Have you approved the meeting minutes from the last annual meeting, and then approved the audit of the corporation's books and accounts? Thanks.
And Mr. Canan, I believe I'm correct in that our tradition is that the county board chair serves as the chair of the building authority the year that they are in office, and I believe that we are intending, I'm not sure if any of my members are intending to make the motion, but I believe the order would be Commissioner Tyne to be the chair, Commissioner Senjum to be the vice chair, our administrator Travis Grancy to be the secretary, and Wilfredo Roman Catala to be the finance officer.
That's correct.
Treasurer. Could I have a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I will move that motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to elect those four people to the officer positions of the Olmsted County Building Authority. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. And now we have an audit, and Mr. Canan, are you going to review the audit with us, or is that Mr. Roman Catala?
Typically, we haven't reviewed the audit, but this simply authorizes that when the county does its own audit, to the extent there's any activities of the building authority, they will be included in the county's audit. So, but typically in the past, we have not included, I don't believe there's any report to be given concerning an audit from the past year.
I would just note that we had a completely clean audit last year and got our AAA bond rating yet again. And so I think that we can trust that it was included last year, and we have no issues to report from our audit from last year. So
I move to approve the audit.
I have a motion and a second to approve the audit of the Olmsted County Building Authority's corporation's books and accounts. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. And the final thing is to approve our very lengthy half-page minutes from our 2023 procedural meeting of last year. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I wouldn't have adjourned. Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Moving now to the Regional Rail Authority. Mr. Canan, you want to give us the overview?
Yes, Madam Chair. Again, the history on the Regional Rail Authority, you recall, it's becoming a bit dated now, but 20 to 25 years ago when the DM&E was proposing coal trains and there was discussion about a bypass potentially to run them around the city of Rochester, it was determined that basically the county, if it was acting through a regional rail authority, had some powers basically that the county itself did not have. And so simply to keep all of our options open at that time, that's why the county decided to create a regional rail authority. Again, for more than a decade, it's had very little to do, but again, in the event that it's needed in the future, we simply have this 5-minute annual meeting to keep it alive. So if we need it, it'll be there. So.
In that case, the meeting has been called to order, and the first order of business is to elect officers, and it's proposed that we have the same format of Chairman, County Board Chairman Tyne, Vice Chairman Senjum, County Administrator Travis Grancy as the Secretary, and Wilfredo Roman Catala as the Treasurer.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to approve the officers. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Now, could I have a motion to review and approve the 2023 Regional Rail Authority?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Similarly, we have included this corporation's audits with our audit with our general county auditing. And so are there any discussion needed about that audit? We have a motion to approve.
Move to approve the audit.
I have a motion and a second to approve the audit. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Is there any other business to come before the body?
No, Madam Chair. Thank you.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion prevails. Well, wouldn't it be amazing if all of our meetings were that easy? So now we will call to order the Olmsted County Board of Commissioners meeting, and we always do start with a time for public comment, which is different than the public hearing that we will be having on our general land use plan. Is there anyone who would like to use this time for the public comment period? Is there anyone in the room who'd like to offer public comment? Is there anyone online? Seeing none, we'll move to our consent agenda. And we have a long consent agenda as our final meeting of the year, so bear with me while I read through a list of about 25 items. First is to approve the Olmsted County Board minutes from December 5th, 2024, to accept the Mobile Crisis Grant, acknowledge the 2025 Olmsted County Housing and Redevelopment Authority property tax levy, to adopt updated aquatic invasive species prevention plan, to approve the 2025 Olmsted County Board calendar, to approve the 2025 Chairperson's contingency account, to approve the 2025 Olmsted County Commissioner salaries and in-county expense allowance per month, to approve the 2025 non-contract compensation plan, to approve the 2025 elected official salaries, to approve the in-county expense allowance, to approve the 2025 committee and board assignments, to approve a gambling permit for Rochester Ducks Unlimited, to approve a gambling permit for Byron Post Prom, to approve the final plat for Oak Quarry, to approve cooperative construction agreement 1058065 with the state of Minnesota, MnDOT, for County Road 112 and Trunk Highway 63 roundabout, to adopt the 2025 Chester Heights Sewer Subordinate Service District Budget and Sewer Service Fee Schedule, to approve purchase of service agreements, to authorize 2025 reserves for general obligation bonds, to authorize the transit sales and use tax for transportation-related services, to reappoint 2025 advisory board members, to release right-of-way to the City of Rochester, to approve our 2025 state legislative priorities and state capital investment bonding prioritization, to establish a public hearing date to discuss the 2025 to 26 capital improvement plan and authorization of the issuance of capital improvement plan bonds, to approve payment of property tax fire abatement 74.36.33.026574. Is there a motion?
Move. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the
Sure.
consent agenda. Commissioner Senchum.
I'd like some discussion on G and K, I'm sorry.
You'd like to discuss the Olmsted County Commissioner salaries and in-county expense and to approve the 2025 committee and board assignments.
So, Madam Chair, I pull G simply because I think it's important that that kind of vote stands aside of the rest of the votes. So I would move approval of item number G having to do with commissioner salaries and in-county expenses at the noted amounts in Resolution 24.
We already have a motion before us to approve the full consent agenda, and I pulled those two out. So I think the appropriate motion would be to
Madam
approve.
Chair, I would move that, let's see, what would I move?
Why don't you, I believe I have a motion, do I not? I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda except for G and K. So I'm going to call.
Madam Chair, I will withdraw G.
Commissioner, if you want to just hold those two, we'll vote on the rest and come back and we can have that separate vote.
Yes.
Okay. So what's before us right now, members, is all of the items on the consent agenda except for items G and K. Those will be voted on separately. Is there any discussion of any of the items on the remaining consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda except for items G and K signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Commissioner Senchum.
Madam Chair, and I would once again say that item number G deals with commissioner salaries and in-county expenses noted in Resolution 24 at the noted amounts, and I would move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 2025 Olmsted County Commissioner salaries and in-county expense allowance per month. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Commissioner K.
And Madam Chair, I would just move also approval of item K having to do with board and committee assignments. My proviso is that I have been a member of the AMC Environmental Committee since I started. I wanted to be on that committee. That's sort of, and I didn't even know that the county board had authority to decide that, but let's just move approval, and but with proviso, I'll probably drift towards the environmental committee instead of public safety.
May I just note, Commissioner, that while the county gets to appoint a voting member of AMC policy committees, other members are welcome to attend their meetings and fully participate in their discussions. And if there happens to be that whoever was appointed to that committee is not present, Olmsted County does get one vote. So you would be able to vote even though you're not the quote-unquote officially assigned member. So your interest in the environmental committee, AMC policy environmental committee, you should be able to pursue and not have any constraint.
Yeah, and I would just simply like to be on the list of that committee. That's what I'm after.
I believe that AMC will put you on the list
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
Even as an alternate.
as an
Yeah,
alternate.
that's fine, yeah, absolutely. So, Madam Chair, I would renew the motion to approve item K.
Second.
It's been moved and approved to, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 2025 committee and board assignments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. We are now going to move to our discussion and decision regarding the final payable 2025 property tax levy and payable 2025 budgets. Welcome.
Well, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Wilfredo Roman Catala. I'm the County Chief Financial Officer. And today we're requesting the approval of resolution adopting the 2025 Olmsted County Property Tax Levy and Olmsted County 2025 budgets. Before we go into that, I would like to briefly highlight a few things related to the timeline and events that took place before this moment. As you probably recall, we started this journey or this process back in April with a rollout of the countywide strategic plan and discussion of a 5-year budget model, followed by the departments updating the capital improvement plans in June, which the county board reviewed in detail and provided feedback, the opportunity for feedback in July to us so we can make some changes to it. Further, the departments and the finance department partnered to get the base budget and decision request completed in early August, and budget decision request presented to county administrator by the middle of August, and finally in mid-September to the county board for your assessment and recommendations and decisions to move things forward. Many of the things discussed during that time was the impact of collective bargaining agreements into our budget, new positions, impact of capital improvement plan, and related debt service for that capital improvement plan. Based on the budget information presented to the county board, you approved the 2025 maximum levy back in September 17th. And then just recently, in December 5th, we have the truth in taxation, which we had the opportunity to share with our county taxpayers the impact of our 2025 budget into their property taxes for 2025. So as you can see in the resolution, today we're requesting approval for adopting the $132,690,673 of levy needed to support our 2025 budget. You can further see in the resolution that number is breaking down into two pieces. The first piece relates to $131,195,738 supporting operations for the county. And then we have separated out the $1,494,935 to fund libraries. And as you know, those libraries are supported by all properties in Olmsted County except for those in the city of Rochester, Stewartville, Chatfield, St. Charles, and Pine Island. So that's the difference between those two figures. Also today, we're requesting your approval for the 2025 governmental funds budget amounting to $354,921,998 and the waste management fund of $61,596,994. I assume you may have some questions or comments with regards to the budget, so after that, I will request a roll call vote from the board, please. Thank you.
Members, are there questions? Well, Mr. Mancatala, as you outlined, we have spent quite a bit of time looking at this, so it's not, our questions have probably been answered in our previous discussions. One more time, members, are there any questions? In that case, roll call has been requested to approve the,
You need a motion first.
a roll call has been requested to approve the budget, and you're correct, we do need to start with a motion and a second.
Move to approve the budget as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the budget. Would the clerk call the roll?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
So members, now we are going to go into a closed session. I don't think it will take more than a half hour or so, but as I announced at the beginning of our meeting, we are going to recess, do a closed session, expect to come back by 6 o'clock. And our next item on the agenda will be to conduct that public hearing, unless there's some informational items I haven't been aware of on the agenda potentially, but we'll do that public hearing about our general land use plan amendment. Again, I think we will be back by 6 o'clock. Apologies to those of you who got the notice about 5. It's been a little bit confusing with the things that have happened, and part of our issue was we have to give 3 weeks' notice before a public hearing, and the notice that we had given was for 6 o'clock. So it is going to be at 6 o'clock, and we will be back by then, I'm sure, and open up the public hearing at 6 o'clock. So we are in recess.
Madam Chair, you just need to identify the parcel of real estate before we go into
All
closed
right,
session.
thank you. I have that here.
It's on page 127 of 143. The parcel number is in the resolution.
I am there, but I failed to underline the parcel number, so it'll take me a minute to find it. Okay, thank you. That's easier. Look at the screen. All right. So the county board is going to meet in closed session to discuss the proposal to purchase a portion of this tax parcel, 64.11.11.079469. And Mr. Conan, is there anything else we need to do for public notice of what we're discussing?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
In that case, we're going to review this this topic with us, and then we will move to the public hearing time and take your testimony. And I know that this is an issue that many of my colleagues have intention to discuss after the public hearing is concluded. Just so you know, those of you who don't always come to public hearings, we ask that you have about a 2-minute time to speak. And I do have a timer that I will attempt to use. I sometimes goof and don't use it properly. And then we will just listen to your comments, and then we'll move to our discussion, and hopefully our discussion will reflect a lot of what we've heard from you as well. So with that, Mr. Dunn, if you'd like to introduce the topic for us, please.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Chair. Dave Dunn, Olmsted County Housing and Planning Director. Here to talk to you about text amendment 02024-003, which is a general land use plan text amendment. But I would be remiss if I didn't start tonight without saying how much, because of tonight being your last meeting, Madam Chair, I know that it's the last thing you want to do, but we all want to say thank you for all of the contributions that you have made, and so hopefully your questions be a little easier on me now that I've said that at the beginning of this as we
No promises,
move
Mr. Dunn.
forward.
I
But
wouldn't
thank
change
you as we proceed.
that. Thank you.
So what I wanted to do tonight was actually just kind of start with a summary of the issue, then I will walk through it in greater detail, and then I'll probably close again with the same summary. I think that way it helps to kind of clarify the issue at hand, the impact of it, and then kind of some of those core issues that I'll get into in a little bit more detail. The text amendment before you tonight is really geared to create a procedural modification to the way that text amendments or map text amendments are done for the general land use plan. The reason for that is our last iteration of the land use plan, which was completed in 2022, did a nice job of trying to engage cities, townships, and the county in the process. But what we didn't do is we didn't really spell out very well what that process was. And so created a little bit of gray area, to say the least. And so what we want to do tonight is to kind of clear that up. The next point on there, I want to talk a little bit about how often this happens, because I know that's one of the things that's come up too. There have been 26 general land use plan amendments since 2014 that have been before you as the board. 20 of those, I believe, were approved, 6 were denied. Just about 22 of those had some kind of suburban development. But the thing I also want to highlight, because I know the most controversial portion of this is really around the urban service area and kind of that component of the conversation. Of the last 10 years, there have been 3 of those that have come forward. So really a relatively minor percentage of all of the general land use plan amendments actually involve the urban service area. So those three we have worked with the city on over the course of the last 10 years. I believe one was 2014, 2016, and 2019. So on those three, when they came up, we worked together and we had similar evaluations, similar proposals and outcomes that we could all work with. The other part is, just to be clear, I think on the primary disagreement, I think it really comes down to, not so much the process itself. I think there's some general consensus around the ability to enhance this process. I think there's differing opinions on who should make some of the final decision, especially on the urban service area issue. Everyone here has probably acknowledged, at least it's looked at that plan, that yeah, there's some cleanup that can do. And I also want to acknowledge the partnership that we have with City of Rochester staff. I know Ryan's here. I don't know if anyone else is here, but we sincerely appreciate their partnership on this issue and many more. And they really did play a part as we're trying to figure out how to do these things the best we can. Also want to highlight that reasonable people don't always agree on everything, and that's okay. As we look at this and we go through these issues and we look at how this works and what happens. The City of Rochester did propose an alternative proposal. It would require a little more vetting, but it does some of the things, most of the things that we really want to clean up. But again, as we talk about kind of this at the end of the day, it really is that disagreement, kind of that decision-making authority. And finally, just in summary, the planning staff does recommend approval of this text amendment. We have worked with our city partners, our township partners, the different committees of the county board to really get feedback on this and do what we can to make this the best process possible. What I would ask is if there are modifications that you would wish to make that are more than maybe a comma or a period or of anything substantive, that we table the conversation, because sometimes when we have amendments on the fly that are significant, we end up with unintended consequences. So when we're doing, hey, let's change this or that or the other, and we just would want a little time to think about that. So a little bit of background information here for you. So I wanted to start with our Olmsted County strategic priorities. This was, I know earlier this evening that as we talked about the budget, we talked about kind of the first time that a strategic plan had been completed for Olmsted County, and of that we came with these 5 strategic priorities that you can read on the screen. 2 just to highlight, because I do think they come into play here tonight, are that environmental sustainability and responsible growth and development. So as we work to develop the county, both physical way and infrastructure and all the things that go along with it, balancing the needs of our population and balancing the needs of our environment and our agricultural partners is the work that we're doing. So starting with, what is the general land use plan? Because I know for some people here tonight, it might be the first time that you've heard of this document that will be referred to probably for the rest of the evening as GLUP. I think in most of the rest of the slides, that's how we put it in there. But it is our general land use policy visioning document for the unincorporated parts of Olmsted County. It really looks at growth management, redevelopment of land and preservation, and really tries to do a couple of things, primarily preserving the resources that we have, whether that's agricultural, whether that's other natural resources, and then also promote economic development. And it's that continuous balancing act that we're talking about this evening. So this is the land use plan as it sits today. Unfortunately, the resolution on the screen isn't always the best, so it's a little difficult to see all of the colors, but most of that is what I would have called yellow on there, which is resource protection, or more commonly, it'd be considered agricultural lands. You can see the gray area, just barely, if you look hard enough, that is the urban service area. So as we look at that, you can kind of see and understand again what that looks like. What is the urban service area? That is the area that is outside of the city limits, that is within the areas that cities plan to provide municipal services to within the next 25 to 50 years. The idea here is that we want orderly growth in our community and really to work together and partner that we can do that in an efficient manner. Within this area, our land use plan calls for development to be consistent with the applicable city's comprehensive plan. So if the area is within Chatfield's urban service area, we would recommend for land uses in that area that it be applicable to, that it would be complementary to how Chatfield would see the use of that land in the long term. That being said, until the time of annexation, the county and township do remain and do retain the jurisdiction over the land use in that area. So again, looking at that map again, just kind of focused on that urban service area and that gray area, and really kind of the area where there's probably the most discussion been on this text amendment tonight. And so then as I get started, I want to just take a little bit of a step back, because I think it's important to understand what the language was prior to the 2022 General Land Use Plan update. I think that helps to understand the context for which the 2022 language was created, and then also to probably understand where there's a modification that can be made. So in the 2014 General Land Use Plan, this was the criteria or the process by which a private party could consider a map amendment. What I really want to just highlight there is the township recommendation is basically the one kind of additional component to that, other than your typical application paperwork and processing fees. The challenges that we had with the plan as it sat in 2014 was that there really wasn't a role for cities in the process, especially when we're talking about our urban service area. We really wanted to work with our city partners across the county to figure out how do we incorporate them into the process. The county still made those ultimate decisions. I will point out that in the case of the city of Rochester, during most of this time, of course, the planning department was consolidated, so I'm sure part of the reason there was not specific city language in there was because it was inferred because of the joint department, but it still wasn't in there, and there still was definitely a lack of clarity. So my good clip art, again, I think for those of you who have already seen it once or twice before, I think it's easy to kind of see where we were at in 2014, where we really didn't have a role for the cities, and the townships had to provide a recommendation, but it wasn't very clear what that was or why or what the criteria was. So now I want to move forward to the current language as the plan sits today. So this is the language for a map amendment process as it stands today. The red language on the board were the changes from the 2014 version to the 2022 version that was approved a couple of years ago. You can see there that we asked for an official township recommendation. I don't know the difference between the non-official township recommendation and the official one, but we now ask that it be official. And a resolution and findings of support from all applicable cities if you are amending an urban service area. In addition to that, I think one of the questions that had come up during the process was about the criteria that we use, and how does this criteria work, and is there criteria that we evaluate? So we wanted to take a couple of slides and just kind of walk through. This is the criteria that's currently in the plan. So when a land use plan map amendment is proposed, these are the criteria that we look at to make the determination as to whether or not it's something that we should recommend approval or denial for, and then ultimately, this is the criteria and recommendation that the board makes the final decision. So you can see on there, and you can see the first one is, was it a mistake? That's very common when you talk about planning documents. If there's an error, let's make sure and change that. The second criteria talks about changing conditions. So of course, as you know, these documents can live for a period of time, and situations change, populations change. The third one really talks about being consistent with the policies of the general land use plan and really those community values. And is the plan and is the proposed amendment consistent with those values, and then meeting those policies and other criteria. The fourth one again talks about policies and again kind of what's changed. You can see kind of some different patterns here as far as making sure what's the change, what's the criteria, why is there a need for this change? Is the land and 5 better suited? Number 6 talks about if there are any alternatives that are available. Number 7 really highlights that suburban development. Much of the land use plan application, the map amendment applications that come in are really around applicants wanting to get their land reclassified into some kind of suburban development. So we wanted to add that component specifically. And then the last one was actually the one that we did add in 2022, which was about traffic generation. So as we're thinking about different uses and different impacts, making sure we're thinking about the impact on the transportation network as we evaluate them. So we, I think, did a lot of things to really clean up maybe some earlier shortcomings in the 2022 document. But I think there was probably one part that we missed, and really what we're here to probably address today, which is really that process for township and city approval. While we talk about an official resolution from the township and a resolution of support from the cities, we hadn't really outlined or highlighted what that process looks like in our current document. And so it really is challenging for us to know what criteria was used to evaluate this. Was it truly evaluated? Did it move forward? And it's also a process that we at the county staff don't control, because all of these things have to happen in order for us to accept an application. Finally, it doesn't really talk about anything specific to urban service area as far as criteria goes as well. So as we were looking at this, we really felt like that was an opportunity that we have to enhance the document. So again, I think if we're looking at where we went from 2014 to the current plan as it sits today, we went from one end of the pendulum to the other. So we went from really not providing any formal role for cities in this process to making city approval necessary in order to submit an application. Finally, I just want to take one moment before I get into the proposed amendment and take a drink and talk a little about the map amendments that have been done between 2014 and 2024. So almost now an 11-year period of time to evaluate kind of what's the recent past in this, how many of these amendments have been proposed, and how many have gone through. So you can see on here that 26 of those were general land use plan map amendments were proposed. Of those, 20 were approved and 6 were denied. All of the 6 that were denied were for some type of suburban development, which is not really surprising considering almost 85% of the applications are to reclassify land for the potential for suburban development. The other thing on there that I just want to highlight is that 3 of the 26, or only 12% of those, were modifications to an urban service area. So again, as we talk about kind of the information about where we're talking tonight in the specific area of urban service area, this is not something that happens very frequently. So we've seen this 3 times in the last 11 years. 2 of those actually removed land from the urban service area. 1 added land to the urban service area. And on all 3 of those, we worked with our partners at the City of Rochester to come up with good and workable, viable solutions for everyone. Now, for 2 of those, it would have still been during the joint department days, so that would have obviously been a collaboration, but I think the last one was after the departments split up. So with all of that background and information, just to walk through the proposed amendment that is in front of you all tonight, and as you can see there, the strike-through language is language that we're eliminating, and then the red language is the new language included. So this is where I say my funny joke about, can you read all of it and see if your eyes are working? But the reality is there's a little bit more to it than there was before. And so in its totality, this is the amendment that's before you. And this is the first part. And then what we also are doing is we are amending 1 of the 9 criteria as well. So this is 1 through 3. This is 4 through 6. And then this is 7, 8, and then 9, which is the criteria that we are proposing to add to the information here tonight. So what I want to do, that's the very broad overview, and I'm sure you all read it and read it very thoroughly from the time it took me to click the button 4 times. But what I do want to do is go through it kind of paragraph by paragraph, point by point here, and just kind of highlight the components of it. So the first paragraph is really the original paragraph from the 2022 document. And what we wanted to change here was to allow private parties to submit an application directly to the county for a general land use plan amendment. And the reason for this is that the process right now, it goes to a township first. It may go all the way through the township. In fact, generally, I think what happens is it goes to the township board reviews it, they approve it, and that might be the first time we see or hear about it is already after kind of the township board has heard it and approved it, and we haven't had a chance necessarily to vet it or to ask any questions. Same thing with an applicable city. If it was in an urban service area, it would go to the city along with that. It's unclear what are the processes that go along both with a township or a city for approval. And so what we wanted to do was allow the county to take the lead on this process and really kind of shepherd and guide projects through it. So we knew kind of what to expect for an applicant when they submit a general land use plan amendment. The second paragraph here talks about the review process, and this was really an opportunity, I think, for all of us to put our heads together just a little bit and figure out how do we do this in a way that respects the time constraints of an applicant, but also allows for adequate development review time, understanding that these are complicated issues and sometimes do require some outside expertise in order to really get the information that's needed. And so what we have added into this is that when the application is submitted to the county, we will turn around within 2 business days and provide that application to an applicable city or the applicable township for sure. And then that township shall have 60 days or 2 regular meetings, whichever is longer. And that was one of the things we modified, knowing that sometimes you might just miss the meeting of the month. And we wanted to make sure there was time to complete that evaluation and to provide that resolution of support or opposition. From that point, the county will have an additional 60 days to work through the planning commission and then ultimately to the county board as it sits right now. So really what we're trying to do there was to create a balanced process with the timelines for an applicant and then also for the timelines to review. So that's really this paragraph. Third paragraph is pretty straightforward. If we don't hear from you, you have basically forfeited your right or your opportunity to provide that formal comment. Again, what we want to make sure we do is we want process. And I think for us, just ensuring due process is very important. Whether your proposal is ultimately approved or denied, to have your opportunity to speak to share your idea and to share your vision and your thoughts. The paragraph 3 really says that if we don't hear, the process continues. And then the last paragraph highlights to some extent what we should be looking for in those findings from both the township and an applicable city if it's one of those situations where it is an urban service area. So when those findings do come, kind of understand what are the impact of that from the perspective of all of the stakeholders. And lastly, that new criteria that we added, so criteria number 9 for modifications to the urban service area is really geared toward creating those specific questions when looking at, is this land geared for an urban type development or should it be removed from an urban type development into another type of use? And so talking about whether or not there has been any infrastructure investments in the area is one of the things that we know we want to know, because if there have been, that's an extraordinarily important component of this. What would be the time frame of potential infrastructure investments in the area? Kind of what planning work has been done, so kind of that component. Looking at how does the proposed amendment impact the ability for managed growth? Because again, one of our core values as a county is that we want to have responsible growth and development. And so highlighting on the front end, what is the impact of the proposal on responsible growth and development is something that is extraordinarily important to us. Environmental factors, so sometimes, as you all know, we try to do land use at a 30,000 foot view, but then sometimes when you get down to actually analyzing the property itself, there can be characteristics that can either make a property suitable or unsuitable for a style of development. So are there anything in that requires some additional environmental protection? And then finally, is the area suitable or not suitable for urban development? And the reason we say urban development in there is because this really is that urban service area component only for this additional criteria. So if there's something with this land, it's supposed to be a catch-all. So really it's, what else should we know as we evaluate this? So the new part, again, is that specific criteria for the urban service area that we are adding to the conversation. So what we're attempting to do is to take that little ball in the pendulum and take it from one side that maybe we went a little bit too far in 2022, and then kind of work it back into the middle in this 2024 amendment. We hope that we can create a standardized and dependable process where we enhance transparency and work with all of our key stakeholders. And so with that, just to give a couple of slides, because I know we have our partners here from the City of Rochester, but we have been working closely with them throughout this process. And they'll speak for themselves, I know, in a few minutes, but just some of the summary of the conversations we've had, at least as we've evaluated this. I think there's a consensus, at least on the staff level, that clarifying this is a good thing, that clarifying the process and kind of creating a better streamlined approach makes a lot of sense. The City of Rochester would recommend that they maintain their role in the process where they have the final authority to move projects forward. That is, again, part of their requests. And the reasons that they had highlighted are potential impacts to affordable housing, infrastructure planning, and then potential negative environmental impacts. With that, they did submit a proposal that was in your packet today of kind of an alternative approach that really outside of an urban service area would probably be very similar. In fact, I think what they would be recommending is outside of an urban service area, the amendment as proposed would make sense. Inside the urban service area, really modify the process to be one that would be led by the city, and the city would take the project potentially to the township for review. And then if there was an opportunity or if the county felt the need to appeal, after a city approval, the county could appeal if they didn't agree with the decision. So as I talked about, we've had continuous conversations around this. And first of all, we're appreciative of the partnership. And partnerships are tested when you don't agree. And the fact that we can sit there and laugh and smile and get along when we don't agree is something that you don't see every day. It's kind of disappointing that it's that way, that should be special, but I think that is one of the many special things that we have here that I'm very proud of. I'm very appreciative of the city's work. And so I think we do have very similar values and goals. So if you were to read the city's comprehensive plan and the county's comprehensive plan, or the general land use plan, they sound very similar. And if I'm going to give you the spoiler alert, it's because a lot of it was written by the same people. And the same people have same beliefs and same values about making sure that we have affordable housing and environmental stewardship and infrastructure planning in our community, because these are things that we all hold dear to us. The city's proposal as it is could enhance the process. So as we talk about it today, it is a viable opportunity for them. If that is the board's choice, you could say, yes, we can, we want to outline something in more detail and allow the city to make that final decision. It would probably require a little bit more vetting. So I wouldn't be here tonight to say that's something that we could recommend approval on, but I just want you to know that as we look at this and we look at different ways and we look at outcomes, they've really worked with us well, and there are definitely pieces of this that are viable if that would be a route that the board wants to take. So again, I told you I was going to start with my summary and end with my summary, and now I'm back to the end. And so the summary really tonight is that our text amendment before you is to modify our process to make map amendments in the general land use plan, really to make modifications based on what I think were some great ideas in the 22 document that we just need a little bit more clarity on. It is a thing that they aren't infrequent, but they don't happen very often. So we have a couple, 3 a year, of which 3 over the last 10 years have really involved the urban service area of the city of Rochester. So when we talk about this, there's been 3 of those that have come forward. And when that happens, we've worked together well, in large part because we have similar criteria and we have similar values. And so as we look at these, we do feel that we have a lot of the same perspectives. And the disagreement really in this case is over kind of that role and whether it is the county board's role to make that decision or whether it's the city council's role. Planning staff, we recommend moving forward and we recommend approval of the text amendment. And I think at that point, if you have any questions for me before I take a seat and allow the public hearing to get started, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Or if you want to wait until after the hearing, it's up to you.
Members, other questions? I do have one, Mr. Dunn. In reviewing the materials that the city had forwarded to us, there seems to be in your number 9 a criteria that the city had recommended that isn't reflected in what you've proposed to us so far. And I wondered if you'd had a chance to see what I pulled out of the packet was a statement that says, excuse me, I'm sorry. So it would be like on your number 9, it would be an E. Will there be impacts to the neighboring properties? Specifically, how does this proposal impact surrounding properties and create future limitations for potential development? That was, I believe, suggested by the city, but isn't reflected so far in what's been listed.
So I think what we would say is it's kind of a part of this more generically into all of those pieces of 9, but if you wanted to specifically add that as a criteria, I think that's certainly something that you could do. I think we support that as a criteria specifically. I think our thought was more the spirit of that was covered in the others. That was probably the difference.
Perhaps when we move to the public comment period, someone from the city or can reflect on that and on our behalf, although I don't have anyone listed right now from the city, except I do have Councilmember Wall. So members, are there other questions?
Oops, okay, well.
All right. So we will now move to the public hearing process. Again, we'll ask that you try to limit your comments to 2 minutes. We will be timing you, and as you come up to the podium, if you would please introduce yourself and give us your home address, we'd appreciate that as well. So I have Norman Wall, Councilmember Wall, first on the list.
December greetings, Madam Chair, County Commissioners. I'm Norman Wall, 5841 Dogwood Court Northwest from the Rochester City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to address you on an issue that's critical to both of us. We've had lots of meetings, officials, staff members. 8 days ago, our council again met for the second time to deal specifically with the text amendment, and we've communicated our position to you twice. Opposing that text amendment for a number of reasons. Actually, Mr. Dunn already showed them to you, particularly in the terms of housing, that perhaps some developments will stymie our ability to provide all kinds of housing in various ways to provide for a range of people in the largest growing city in Minnesota. Second, we're worried about infrastructure, that we have limited resources, and certain developments we might have difficulty bringing water, sewer, other services, and those are services that are funded by the city of Rochester. Finally, we're worried environmentally, that large clusters of homes will environmentally create risks that a modern wastewater treatment plant will mitigate against phosphates and PFAs and chemicals and all those things that we're worried about. So we ask of you 3 things in the city tonight. One is to not pass what is proposed in your packet for tonight. A second is that you add the criteria. I'm grateful to Mr. Dunn for his review of the city proposal. I think that that would lead to our third request, and that is that we allow a bit more time, so that together we can provide the very best product. I thank you for representing the people of Olmsted County, 125,000 of which live in the city of Rochester. And we believe that decisions that encumber city finances belong with the city. Really appreciate all that you do. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. All right. John Johnson. Welcome.
Commissioners, thank you for having me this evening. John Johnson, 2017, 80th Avenue Northeast, Eota, Minnesota, which I'm in Haverhill Township, but our mailing address comes out of Eota, so. Obviously, we would like to keep this power of any land use changes at the commissioners, county commissioners level. You people are our elected officials, and it would be remiss of me to not come and oppose not having this done back to the county, because our constituents would expect to have elected officials take care of our land use. I think that's a reasonable request. We've always worked with the city, gotten along good with them. I know Dave Dunn, you talked about collaboration between the city and the county, but what you left out was collaboration between the city, county, and the townships. We've always worked with the city and have had a good relationship, and we want to see the city thrive and grow as it's needed. Our goal is to keep control of this at our township level. We know we don't have final say, but our elected officials would have final say in it. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We don't ask questions or engage in conversation, but we are avidly listening.
Thank you. I appreciate you for hearing me.
Thank you. Joel Mesmer. Joel Mesmer, maybe I'm saying it wrong. Messer. Mesmer. I think I was signing up for here. Well, you did, and welcome.
But I'm Joel Mesmer. I'm 5423 Highland Ridge Lane Southeast. I'm on the Marion Township Board of Supervisor. And there again, I'm echoing John's statements there is we just don't agree with the current language, and we'd like the decision-making to be with our commissioners and us as elected officials as well. You know, we have, in our township anyway, we have 1,400 households and 4,200 residents, and you know, we just want to keep that in our hands and in your hands. And like John said, we work with the city well on other issues, so that's what I wanted to say tonight. So thank you.
Thanks for being with us. Roger Berkey.
My name's Roger Berkey, 3840 30th Street Southeast. I'm also a member of the Marion Town Board. Thank you, commissioners, for hearing us tonight. The townships kind of got drawn into this through our fire contract. Every 10 years, we have a fire contract with the city of Rochester. This contract had a provision in it with this zoning amendment in it. We feel it should not be in the fire contract. We just want fire protection for our constituents. We get along great with the fire department. We've got along good with the county board and the city council, as the other two members have said. We just want fire protection. That's what we're here for. We're not here to get in the middle of the city-county dispute. That's up to you guys. We want to stay with the county in that urban service district. But my feeling is, and I think I speak for the other townships, we want to have a fire contract. We do pay our fair share. In 2025, collectively, the 4 townships will pay the city of Rochester $815,000. Marion Township is $233,000 for 2025. That's a big part of our budget. We can't do any more road and bridge with it. We need fire protection. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Amy Cockett.
Hello, I'm Amy Cockett. I live at 716 28th Street Northwest. And I have to say, I've heard a lot of calming voices tonight. A lot of don't worry, be happy, you can trust us. The problem is, already you can hear there isn't trust. And so how do you design a system that works with low trust? On behalf of the League of Men Voters, I urge you to oppose the stricken language, which currently says that the city has to support a change in the urban service area. The change says the city can advise. Now, if the trust isn't there, that's a huge change, moving it to you. I think cities must retain this authority if the Olmsted County Land Use Plan is to continue to be a technical document rather than a political document. As our area faces unprecedented growth, we're going to be seeing, who knows how soon the city of Rochester and even Olmsted County is going to double with everything that Mayo has planned. I was there as the president of the League of Men Voters when your predecessors on the Olmsted County Board in 1978 took a courageous step to implement a land use plan that protected agriculture, protected orderly development, and what we saw coming as the environmental crisis with the fragile groundwater. I saw firsthand the risks they took and that later county boards in maintaining this technical approach rather than a political approach. And I remember chairing a huge meeting at John Marshall High School auditorium when this was being explained in 1978, and how difficult it was for the elected officials to bear up to the anger. The anger was not urban versus rural. It was old farmers versus young farmers. Old farmers who wanted to retire and sell their land for development, and young farmers who wanted to be able to buy land at agricultural prices. And with the agricultural protection and the orderly development that was in the urban service area, we were spared that coming before either the county board or the city. Our areas have mostly been spared annexation wars or the imposition of a Met Council, as certainly happened, to referee these kinds of interests in other areas of our state.
Ms. Cockett, you're over time, but if you can conclude your remarks. I'm not asking you to sit down. I'm just asking you to wrap up. Okay. Just wanted to let you know what the timing was. Would you like to conclude your comment?
I would just say that the change that happened 2 years ago was probably because of a very unfortunate situation where the Consolidated Planning Department was split up. Before that, you did not have to specify that the city had to have a right of first refusal because the Consolidated Planning did that. I just would like to have you think that for almost 50 years of success, I think what you're doing tonight will be undermining a technical document. I would just suggest we come together, work together, and talk together before you make what I see as an unalterable change.
Thank you very much. Thanks for understanding in terms of the time. Bernard Nigan. Mr. Nigan?
My name is Bernard Nigan. I live at 670 60th Avenue Southwest, Rochester, Minnesota. I didn't sign up to speak, so I don't know how I got my name on there, but...
It's on there.
It's on here.
Oh, I thought that was the attendance, sorry.
You weren't the only one. I think Mr.
Now that I'm here...
Esmer was in the same situation.
Just briefly, a little history. I think it's our family farm that might be the impetus for some of this discussion and the proposed changes. The history of the family farm was that it was purchased in 1897 by my great-grandfather. It's been in the family for 4 generations. The last farmer in the family just retired a few years ago. There are 9 of us who are descendants of Ralph and Agnes Nigan, who owned the farm. We are, as I said, no more farmers in the family, so we're looking to dispose of the farm. And our advisors have told us that due to topographical issues of the farm. It's got floodway, it's got floodplain, it has steep slopes in excess of 18 degrees. It has wetlands and high elevations. It's very difficult to develop as an urban parcel. They've told us that the highest and best use of that farm is suburban development. It's my opinion that the city is, by keeping it trying to keep it in the urban reserve, is trying to put a square peg in a round hole. The topography is just not amenable towards urban development. And some of the commissioners here have toured the property. I think they, after having the hayride, they might have to agree with me. So thank you, and I guess next time I'll watch where I sign up.
Thank you. Nick Miller.
Chair Cascaden, County Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Nick Miller. I live at 818 8th Avenue Southwest, Rochester, and I'm the incoming Ward 2 representative on Rochester City Council. While I am speaking tonight in opposition to the proposed text amendment as written, I want to begin by recognizing the progress made between city and county staff over the past weeks. It's clear that we all share a commitment to thoughtfully managing growth and serving the people of Olmsted County. However, I stand with my city colleagues in respectfully opposing the proposed changes to the general land use plan as they stand today. I do so not because of a lack of trust in the county's leadership, but because we need more time to ensure we arrive at an amendment that strengthens process, increases transparency, and protects the long-term fiscal and environmental sustainability of our region. This decision will impact Rochester's growth not just for the next decade, but for the next century. Development decisions made today carry long-term implications, some of which may burden future leaders and taxpayers with the costs of poorly planned growth. We must avoid the kind of uncoordinated development that leads to costly remedies, such as the cleanup of 1,500 septic systems in Southeast Rochester decades ago. Unplanned development leaves lasting liabilities for future generations. This proposed change risks Rochester's ability to grow in an orderly, fiscally responsible, and environmentally sustainable manner. Next month, 5 new members will join the City Council and County Board, bringing fresh perspectives to both bodies. This moment presents an opportunity to recommit to strong working relationships and to alignment on a shared vision for our community. Growth that is orderly and well-planned requires all 14 of us to collaborate, particularly as we coordinate critical infrastructure investments. Whether it's water and sewer systems, roads, or public services, our ability to work together shapes the fiscal health of our broader community and demands coordinated long-term planning. City and county staff have worked hard to advance this discussion, and progress has been made towards the updated GLUP language. However, I do not believe that we are yet at the finish line. I ask that you delay this decision to allow more time for county staff to evaluate Rochester's proposed amendment language and report back to you on its feasibility. Additional time will ensure the process aligns with the goals of both bodies without shifting decision-making authority in ways that could hinder long-term planning. As Commissioner Tyne recently wrote to us newly elected City Council members, the role of elected officials is to set direction while trusting the trained professionals we rely on to carry out the work. That direction is strongest when set collaboratively, with clear processes and criteria that both city and county support. So let's take the time to get this right, or as Mr. Dunn said, do a little additional vetting.
Excuse me, you are now at the same
Thank
place
you.
Mrs. Cockett was. If you could wrap up, please.
Thank you for your service to Olmsted County and for your leadership on this issue. I look forward to working together in the months and years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You'll have a new appreciation for how difficult it is to make a lot of points in 2 minutes. As the council uses the 2 minutes with some frequency, which we're not quite as accustomed to. So apologies to those of you that I had to ask to curtail your comments. So members, we have now had Mr. Dunn's presentation. We have heard the public comment. Let me ask, is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Sorry, I didn't sign up. I'm a rule breaker. Jim Beer, 5945 60th Avenue Northwest. I've listened to a lot of stuff tonight. I would agree with Ms. Cockett that I think this slipped through the cracks when we split the consolidated planning. And because if I was used to be a county commissioner, for those of you who don't know it, Michelle took my place. She's a lot smarter than I am. Anyways, I know I would have not been in favor of ceding that authority to the city of Rochester. And the reason, not because I don't like Rochester, but we're in Olmsted County, and I view the county board as a senatorial body. There is plenty of representation. I believe 6 of you members are elected by the city of Rochester, have most of your constituents in the city of Rochester. So if the city has a view, I think there'll be, and it's a strong view, I think you only have to convince 6 because that's most of the commissioners. I'm kind of stumbling around, but I'm really, really, truly disappointed. When I first got elected in 2002, the city and the county and the townships and RPU and People's Co-op were at each other's throats. And you can say I'm an old man and that was a long time ago, but this is the same thing over again. And I'm very, very sad that we are regressing. And I feel that if you do not pass this tonight, that we will be regressing. It's a county land use plan. It includes input from the townships, from the cities, including the city of Rochester. But at the end of the day, it's you 7 people that have to vote on these. And as I recall, the last 20 years and Ken Brown is here too, you should invite him up to speak. We worked hard to try and get along with everybody. We have a big pie in southeastern Minnesota, and there is plenty for everybody to share. I see that I'm over time. I would thank you for your service, and please pass this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Please come forward. Introduce yourselves as you've seen the others do. Welcome.
My name is Nathan Clark. I'm at 2589 Wild Rose Lane, Southwest Rochester, Minnesota. I serve on the Rochester Township Board. So it goes to 2 minutes?
Yep.
Okay, I'll try to finish even sooner.
It does keep going, so.
I think this is a really difficult issue, and there are a lot of good opinions on both sides. Thinking of Bernie, the description, I've walked his land, and I see his perspective. So I can really see both sides, and that suggests to me there probably needs to be some sort of compromise in the middle. I like the idea of this pendulum. And I just want to share, but I do worry about urban sprawl, and that's a word I haven't heard here yet tonight. And I just encourage y'all to go home and Google that term tonight and read up on it. I'm just going to quickly share an anecdote with you to refer to what I'm talking about. I teach part-time out at the college, and a student comes to me and says, Mr. Clark, I have a chance to go to Europe to visit Poland. Is it all right if you can excuse me for a week so I can go on this trip? You bet. But when you come back, I want you to give the class a presentation on some differences you observed. And this is one of those from the mouth of babes moments. This young guy says, I swear this was unsolicited. He says, Mr. Clark, when he gave his presentation, he said, one of the biggest differences I noticed was people over there in Poland, the towns are all clustered together, and then you have this beautiful landscape that you can see. But here, we just spread out. Americans, we just spread our homes all as far as we can. We use big chunks of land, and and it's eating up the landscape. So I see both sides of the issue. Very bright people, good people on both sides of this issue, but I worry about urban sprawl. I would encourage you all to read up on that. Houston, Phoenix, the Wasatch Front between Salt Lake City and Provo, Utah. They're one giant strip mall, and it ain't pleasant. That's my concern. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
All you
Thank
guys.
you for your service and for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Is there anyone online who's seeking to testify?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Well, members, we're open for discussion, and I know that some of you are ready.
Maybe act on a motion first.
Sure, I'll make a motion.
Do you want to ask any questions? I have a question for Mr. Dunn. Yes, sorry, Mr. Dunn. Does anyone else have questions for Mr. Dunn? Okay. The factor that I raised earlier of, that the city had proposed of impacts to neighboring properties, how does the proposal affect impact surrounding properties in future? Your view is that it's already implied in the criteria you've developed.
It's already implied in the criteria. That being said, if it wanted to be explicitly added, I think that's something that we would think works well with the spirit of the amendment.
All right. Are there any other discussion, points of clarification that members would like to?
Madam Chair, can I just say, I mean, every word in this document's explicitly important. If what is suggested here is important, those words ought to be in the document, I think, because I don't think, people are going to be interpreting this document 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. They're not going to go back to this hearing tonight and watch and try to get a sense of the body. They're going to read what's on the piece of paper. So I think we need to be as explicit as possible in whatever language we have.
Well, and I wanted to raise that question because we are, in the spirit of cooperation, trying to work with the city to come to something that we can all live with. And rather than have I just think having some clarification now would be helpful. That's why I brought it up before we have a motion. Because once we have a motion, then it's really more about amendments rather than just open discussion. So I'd like to have a little open discussion first. Mr. Dunn, is there anything you wanted to add, having heard the public testimony?
No, just appreciate everyone coming out and speaking on this issue.
Okay, all right. So I think you're ready to make a motion.
No, I think Brian's going to.
I'll make the motion to accept the text amendment for the general land use plan as presented.
Is there a second?
I would like to amend it to include that sentence that Commissioner Cascaden read.
Which is, will there be impacts to neighboring properties? Specifically, how does this proposal impact surrounding properties and create future limitations for potential development?
If I recall, that's in there, isn't it?
No, it's not in the county, but, so I'm asking if I can amend your motion to put that in there.
Yes.
You consider that a friendly amendment?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So now we have a friendly amendment to the motion to adopt the language as proposed by the staff.
Would second the motion.
We have a motion and a second.
Chair, can I get just a state of clarity? So we have the motion and we have 9, I'll call it criteria. And number 9 is A, B, and C, and then we would include the sentence that has been referred to. Is that what the motion is?
Pretty much. It would be,
I
number
think-
9 would be A, B, C,
Right.
D, and there would now be an E.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure staff had that.
Mr. Dunn's indicated that staff have got that. Any other clarification? Okay. Discussion.
All right, so I think it'd be important that as we start discussion, we have a little history of how we got here, why this is on the news every night. So I've done some study and I'm going to give you a little history lesson if you can put up with me. So in 1975, Rochester Olmsted County Planning formed. It was the only combined city-county planning department in the state, and it handled all planning and zoning issues within Olmsted County's 18 townships and the city of Rochester. This combined planning department consisted of Olmsted County employees and was funded by the Olmsted County tax levy and fees. 1997, after years of conflict between area townships and the combined planning department, which was accused of being very Rochester-centric, 6 area townships formed their own planning department within Olmsted County. The TCPA, which is the Township Cooperative Planning Association, would eventually grow to include 14 Olmsted County townships. TCPA provides zoning oversight for these townships, and for these townships, any variations from Olmsted County's regulations must be more restrictive, not less. Olmsted County still provides long-range planning and transportation planning services in addition to administering the well code. 2019, wanting more planning services than the Olmsted County Board was willing to fund, the City of Rochester decided to end the cooperative planning agreement with Olmsted County, which is a move I understood and supported. Rochester's Community Development Department was formed, and all planning in the townships, including in the city's urban reserve area, was administered by Olmsted County's Planning Department. 2022, Olmsted County passed an update of our general land use plan. The rewrite took place during COVID, and no discussion was had about giving the city's right to control the planning within the urban reserve area, yet we passed it and it was in there. After 45 years, the cities now had planning authority outside their city limits. With this new process, any land use change would go to the appropriate township for comment and then advance to the city for approval. If the city didn't approve it, the county never saw it. Spring of 2024, some township residents made commissioners aware of frustrations they were having dealing with the city on potential land use changes and possible annexation. They felt powerless dealing with a body of government that did not represent them. The county was taxing them, but powerless to represent them. We initiated a study of the issue and invited the City of Rochester to present to us so that we could become informed on the issues from their perspective. Summer of 2024, while the county was considering whether it made a mistake ceding planning authority to the city in the urban services area, generally a 2-mile plus band outside the city limits of any city, where the city feels that it may be able to offer city services sometime in the next 50 years, the city was negotiating its next 10-year fire contract with the 4 surrounding townships. These 10-year contracts have been negotiated for at least 20 years now and did not involve Olmsted County because they have nothing to do with Olmsted County. Without notifying Olmsted County, a city administrator inserted a clause in the contract that, had the townships not read it thoroughly before signing, would have ceded the township planning in the urban services area to the City of Rochester. It required that the townships collaborate with the City of Rochester when land use changes are requested in this area. If they didn't collaborate, they would be in violation of the fire protection contract. This was an effort to take away the county's ability to take back planning authority that we had mistakenly given them in 2022. The fall of 2024, the City of Rochester keeps rewriting clause number 4, but doesn't change its meaning, giving the townships no choice but to refuse to sign a contract that would give their power to the City of Rochester or be found in violation of the fire contract. And they remain on an impasse to this day. Winter of 2024, at least one city council member, after previously saying multiple times that connecting the issue in front of us today with the fire contract was a mistake and that he's sorry that they did it, now outright threatens to stop selling fire protection services to the townships if the county takes back planning. All right, that's the timeline of history to get to today. I'm going to present a few more facts. Every resident of the City of Rochester is also a resident of Olmsted County. The Olmsted County Board consists of 4 commissioners whose districts are entirely within the City of Rochester. One whose district is 2/3 the City of Rochester, mine who's 50-50 Rochester and small towns and township, and only one commissioner whose district is primarily rural. I don't know of any county commissioner who wants to harm the City of Rochester's ability to grow in a responsible manner. We just want to do the same job we've been doing for 47 of the last 49 years, represent our citizens. In the rare instance where a rural landowner and the city are not in agreement, which has happened 3 times in the last 10 years. Nearly every developer that I've ever met would much rather develop with city services, where they can sell 3+ homes per acre instead of 3+ acres per home. It's much more profitable. So this is not about fighting annexation. The Rochester Fire Chief has been on record supporting the proposed 10-year extension of the fire contract with the 4 surrounding townships. He stated that the contract was fair to all sides, as the townships benefited from first-class fire protection, a fact that the townships agree with, and the city benefits financially as RFD only responds to fire calls within the townships, not ambulance calls or services such as assisting in a lift of a falling person, like they do in the city. Lastly, if the city does not offer another fire contract to the 4 townships, Rochester City taxpayers will have to make up $10,023,931 in lost revenue that the townships would have paid over the next 10 years. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Chair,
Commissioner Rossman.
I would just like to speak in full support of this amendment. I don't need to articulate the many mutual values that we have with the city of Rochester. Many of our speakers did it tonight. What we are doing in defining a fully transparent and detailed process that now forces accountability is just reinforcing all of those shared values. I find it very unfortunate that there have been opponents to this amendment who have taken a 186-page, thorough, thoughtful, strategic document and really brought it down to a few bullet points and talking points that are being parroted by some in opposition to this. This is the right move. It's a much improved process, and I certainly hope that we have enough support tonight to move this forward and continue to represent the citizens of Olmsted County.
Thank you. Other members?
Whatever, yeah.
Mr. Dunn, I'm going to bring you back up again. As we heard this evening, I've been on the board now 12 years. This is my 12th year on the board. And only a handful of times have we ever looked, I think you said 3 times in the last 10 years. And when you have a complicated technical area like land use planning and you only do it once every 3 years, you don't really develop much expertise in it. So the county, I always tell people that the county is focused a lot on our human infrastructure, and the city is more focused on our built environment and our built infrastructure. And I say that looking at our physical development folks, because we do maintain, build roads and have parks and so on. But I think a point of confusion here, and maybe I'm gonna just see if you think if this is an accurate assumption. When people have heard about this conflict between the city and the conflict on the land use plan, they conflate it with zoning. And so the issue before us, and see if I've understood this correctly, is when a property owner in the township wants to petition to have their land reclassified, usually it would be out of the urban service area, the reserve area, into suburban development. That issue is not necessarily, if that were granted, which as you demonstrated has hardly ever been granted, that's a reclassification of land, but they still have to get zoning permission to do whatever it is that they're planning to do. So it feels to me like with our land use plan, looking at some of the same things, affordable housing, environmental protection, orderly growth, some of the confusion may be that, especially among the citizens we're hearing from, that aren't township officers and so on, they think that when we talk about a land use plan amendment that we're talking about zoning. Is that how you're understanding it, or am I confused here?
Well, the two are very confusing when you put them together, because when you talk about land use, you're talking about the broad, generally what I'll say is land use is very broad. It is not parcel specific, nor is it legally binding. But what it does do is set the basis for zoning, which is legally binding and does give a property a certain amount of rights. So the two need to be connected. You need to have, so if you have a parcel that has a land use designation of commercial, you really shouldn't go in and put an industrial zoning classification in the two. So they are connected, but then there is that second part of any process that would be zoning, which would be to give a parcel specific rights.
Thank you. I think in my mind, some of the things I'm reading from people, they've conflated the two. And that's I think, part of the confusion. The other question I have for you, Mr. Dunn, is you had said earlier, if we make substantive amendments, you would prefer that we not do that on the fly. Are we in a place that you feel that you don't need, the amendment is clear enough that that's been offered?
Yeah, absolutely. And as we looked at that particular criteria, the only reason we didn't specifically include it was we thought it was inferred. So specifically including that, we feel like maintains the spirit of collaboration that we want to have, and it's a good thing to document it.
Thank you very much. All right, members, any other discussion? Mr. Senjum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I guess everyone knows, I opposed this on November 5th, and I'm going to oppose it tonight. And I think a lot about this in terms of the destiny of a city and who is best equipped, if you will, to carry that destiny out. And we live in a great county and we live in a great city. I don't think there's any question about that. And we live in a city that's dynamic beyond perhaps any other city in the Midwest, maybe the entire country, actually. And I was looking last night at the population growth of Rochester. From 2000 to 2020, it was 41%, 2% a year, compounding. And I just thought a little bit about that. Okay, so Rochester's 121,000. What if for the next 100 years we grow at 1% a year? What is that compounded? And it's 328,000 people. And then I think about the space that we have. And by the way, why did the legislature ever create the urban service area? It was because they contemplated through something called a Community Development Act back in 1975 that cities, and certainly not all of them, but cities certainly like Rochester, should have an ability to look into its future and determine the destiny of where all that growth is going to occur. And and I'm not being critical here, but as we look at where growth has occurred outside of the city through a period of time, in many cases many years, perhaps 20 to 30, we now basically have a city where from Highway 52, if you circle around to the northeast, you almost get to Century High School before you can, say, poke a sewer pipe through and in fact serve people on the other side of that suburban subdivision area. And the same is true of the southwest area, and the same is true of the deep southeast area. And so as we think about the growth of a city, and I think if you don't believe it's going to grow, you don't believe in the future of Mayo Clinic or this city and everything that goes with Mayo Clinic, we're going to have space for people. And the more we encapsulate, if you will, the city of Rochester, and I'm not suggesting that this board will do it, but we're talking about people that will be at this dais or another one like it someplace in this county 50 and 100 years from now. And how can we assure the future of our city and frankly our county that development's going to occur in an orderly basis and frankly in an urban basis? And so as I think about this, I just think in terms of what is our city going to look like? And I say collectively our city. We all don't live in it, but collectively our city, because frankly it is the mother city of Olmsted County, and that's just the way it is. But what will it look like in 50 or 100 years? We know it's going to be much bigger, and where's that growth going to occur? Right now, frankly, the growth is kind of going to occur out in that far northwest area, because that's where growth can occur based on the lack of suburban subdivisions encapsulating the city. So I just think we have to think long-term about this. We have to think in terms of what this city's going to look like long beyond any of us. And I would contend, and I thought this myself, I don't even know what the city's annual budget is, much less know what their fire protection service program is, much less what their utility from the standpoint of electrical service is, much less the sewer and water. I don't know anything. I used to back in the 90s, but I don't know anything, and I would contend that, and none of us do, and none of us are expected to do, but yet we're going to, with the adoption of this amendment, we're going to determine vis-a-vis land use amendment texts that come before us, we're going to determine what that future is without a lot of knowledge and without I don't think the information that really you have to have. And by the way, I was looking at the city's comprehensive plan, 352 pages. They have thought a lot about what this city is going to look like on into the future. And so is the county, by the way. But there's a lot of stuff here and a lot of stuff that we don't know and a lot of stuff that's very, very important in making these kind of decisions. So I believe that the urban survey area contemplated the city's decision-making process within it. That's why the legislature created it. And I, for that reason, oppose this amendment and believe that in the long run, city council working with county board are in the best decision to determine what, again, Rochester, Minnesota, and frankly, the surrounding cities look like long, long into our future. Thank you.
Can I call the vote?
Well, I'm wondering if anyone else has another comment. I just can't resist, you know, I've gone back and forth thinking about this, but I just want to call out that the urban service area determination is a land use plan that the county had made and put that into an urban service area for the city's future development. And I cannot believe, given we have so much of the same criteria for what we see as planned orderly growth, that if there is a request to make a change to the urban service area, that the county will not really look at what the city's needs are and consider that and collaborate with the city as moving forward. But the question is, in my mind, it comes down to who represents the people of that township. And the city council, as good a job as you're doing in planning for the city, does not represent those people. And so if we can get to a place that we can find a way to really deeply collaborate, I think makes more sense. And for where we are right now, and to the point that was made earlier, is you've already seen that we've made changes in 2014 and 2022, and now we're making a change in 2024. So we will have the opportunity, this board and future boards will have the opportunity to make modifications to our land use plan and to our relationship with the city, and how we make decisions in the future. This isn't the end of the story. It's just a new chapter in a long, long history of working together, the city and the county, on a whole variety of issues. You know, we work together already on housing. We work together already on emergency response. We work together on a whole variety of issues. And this particular issue is not one that determines the full future of our relationship in any way, shape, or form. So the question for me comes down to, do the people, the property owners in the townships where we've identified land use plans for urban service area, who represents them when there's a petition by a private individual to make a change to that designation? And I think it should be made by the people that represent them and not by the city, who is, with all good intentions and with a lot of congruence with our own values of trying to plan orderly growth. And so I've been back and forth mentally on this several times, but I'm prepared to support the motion that's before us, but not without your long speech, Commissioner. I just couldn't let the meeting end without at least articulating another approach to this question. It is a complicated question, and we do value our relationship with the city of Rochester. So I think my colleague to the left was intending to call the question. Is there?
Call the question.
All right. The question is called. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same side.
Nay.
Motion prevails. So we are now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience of being with us. This amendment has been adopted by the Olmsted County Board. This is the latest chapter in a long story. We are not, this is not a be-end and end-all in any way, shape, or form. So we are going to move to some reports, a couple of quick reports. In fact, one I'm told is not going to happen, and then I'm going to ask for a very, very brief recess of a minute or two, because as you know, as my colleagues know, I like to read a quote at the end of the meeting, and I have something else I want to do tonight to close this last meeting that I'll have the privilege of being at this, on this board and in this chair. So I'm wondering if Commissioner Mueller is prepared to give us a report on status of the law library.
You know, I am. I am at my, I have had my final meeting with the law library. Commissioner-elect Bob Hopkins is going to be my replacement. For the law library, the annual budget is $201,375. They have 1.2 full-time employees. The only real comments were about the size of the room, that they only have 2 computers and the privacy, so just concerned with the size of the area that they have for the people that come in to use the library. Other than that, it is pretty uneventful, so, but that's what's going on.
Okay. And I understand from Commissioner Rossman that the Federal Medical Center Advisory Board, Community Relations Board, actually has not met in 2024, so it was the easiest assignment she's had all year. And I observed that for those of us who've been around a long time, we can remember when it was a very controversial entity in our community, and they had many community relations meetings. And isn't it interesting that it's no longer needed? So I am going to do.
Madam Chair, I have a point of personal privilege.
Okay, but I would like, I wonder if you would allow us to have the recess and then use your point of personal privilege. Would you allow that,
Depends
please?
on what your last comments are.
Well, that's why I would like, we're in recess. We're in recess. Well, about a 2-minute recess, 2-3-minute recess, and then we'll come back. And if you
Are we on TV?
I think we are probably on TV, yeah, we will be.
Can I do it now?
No, please wait.
Okay.
I'm feisty today. I don't plan to bring it.
Oh, is he? Oh.
Physically a little bit closer.
Usually when you're walking up to me, that's why you want to join that conversation.
No.
Correct. Yeah. Well, see you again, sir. Open session. Wow.
Ties?
Still have to go advertising, see, for 3 weeks, basically. Like chocolate?
The wrong ones, sorry. The gold ribbons. That's okay.
Thank you.
Oh, we got him. What is that? Oh. Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Who gets it? Oh.
Well, I mean,
Those are for you.
Great.
all I know is I got 5 stars.
I just wanted to make sure you had that.
Is it?
What does that mean?
Okay, I'm going to call us back to order, please. Remember, I told you it would be a very brief recess. So I know Commissioner Senjum wants to have the floor, and I will gladly give him the floor in just a couple minutes. But Mr. Staver, I wonder if you're welcome to stay, Mr. Staver, because I think you might enjoy this, Mr. Staver. I've been given a gift. I've given a gift to each of our staff and to my colleagues on the board. And if you just take a look at the little gift that I've given you as a parting gift from me, these are public policy decision-making puzzles. And if you look at the puzzles, you discover that there's at least 8 varieties in the room, and not one of the county board members has the same puzzle. And that's because very often we're not trying to solve the same puzzle.
It was random.
At the board.
She just wants to see me
You know, we have
frustrated.
to balance different priorities such as economic growth, social welfare, political power, fiscal responsibility. And supposedly, we want to put in our budgeting process, we want to collaborate and have different perspectives reflected. We want input from voters and interest groups and legislators. But we also need a big picture view. And if you don't know what that puzzle's supposed to look like when it's, you know, you don't have a picture of what you're solving, it gets really, really messy. And lots of times we don't have a very clear picture of the puzzle that we're trying to solve. And then we also know that we have limited resources. And if you get one of those puzzle pieces, especially for some of those with the more complicated puzzles, if you get one of those puzzle pieces out of order, you're really in trouble. And it'll take you a very long time to kind of figure it out because it has to fit perfectly for you to achieve your NT. And they may not even fit together all at once at the first beginning. So bottom line, solving public policies puzzles is time consuming and it demands focus. And resolving complex issues in a democracy involves long processes and many constraints. And the proposed solutions often go through revisions like we're seeing tonight, many revisions through debate, negotiation, and sometimes failure before arriving at a workable work plan. So I hope that you will enjoy having these little puzzles and thinking about what puzzle are you trying to solve in the public policy arena, and who of the staff is trying to solve the same puzzle that you are.
I took it apart.
You took it apart? On your little box, it says what it's supposed to look, it says what it's called. It might give you a hint of what it's supposed to look like at the end. But those of you with active cameras like the guy to my right and the guy to my left, you might want to take a picture of it before you pull it apart.
Yeah, really.
Anyway, you know, I've really enjoyed my 12 years on the county board. I enjoyed the staff and all the work that we've done together. I've enjoyed trying to solve public policy puzzles. And I've really enjoyed it when we're working on the same puzzle, which doesn't happen as often as I wish it did. But thank you for the opportunity to serve with all of you, and good luck in solving your public policy puzzles. So, and I would guess that now Commissioner Senjum wishes to speak.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I start looking at this, I'm not sure I can even get the box open, much less the puzzle. But thank you, this will be a fond memory of you, and I just wanted to say, and I didn't really come prepared, other than just kind of speaking from my heart from the standpoint of our relationship, and which goes back, I'm not sure how long, but certainly during our time in the Senate together and this last couple of years on the county board. I've really appreciated you as a person, as a policymaker, as a thoughtful individual that guides and gives wise counsel and advice at all times. You're a genuine community icon, and I will miss you on this county board, and I'm sure our community and our entire county will, because you've left a legacy, and you've done the good work, and so congratulations on your retirement. It won't quite be the same around here, that's for sure, but we all wish you well, and I just wanted to express my thanks for our personal relationship through the years. It's been a good ride, and good luck wherever your ride takes you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Nobody else.
Adjourn.